everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the August 2022 online meeting of the Los Angeles Post-Production Group. Solutions, not numbers, picking the best storage for creators. We are thrilled to welcome Jeff Greenberg. He's here on behalf of OWC. Jeff is an editor, colorist, educator, and consultant in the field of post-production. He works with large and small clients to help smart people become smarter. I like that. He is a master trainer who speaks at events like NAB, Adobe Max, and Editor's Retreat. And he focuses on concrete techniques that make our lives easier. I need some of that. You can find him on your favorite social networks as Film Geek or at jgreenbergconsulting.com. Welcome, Jeff Greenberg. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's a joy. I'm a huge fan of you guys at every level. Today, I'm going to be talking about storage, not numbers. The SSD story is it's become the backbone of all of our systems. Not any one of us is going to buy a computer that's primary startup disk is a spinning disks. And in fact, my time is so important that especially when traveling, SSDs have become the norm. I don't like those little spinny mobile disks. I think they're too fragile. Now, part of this story here for me is that I became an OWC fan because I was using so much of their hardware in different areas. I'm actually looking for this little, right here. Look at that. There's my travel dock right there. They have to have a lot of things that have nothing to do with storage. The docks, particularly for our Macintoshes that only have that Thunderbolt port, these become a necessity, and we want serious ones. I needed to switch this. This first one is that mini one. This one here is now my new favorite. This is a mini stack. It's got 4 Thunderbolt ports on it and fits beautifully under a Studio or a Mac Mini. And what's crazy is they're bigger docks from OWC. They can put storage in it, so it becomes like it serves double duty. We're going to talk more about their storage in a second. This bad boy over here, this is a Gemini. And I'll talk about some generalized items if you guys ask, but I'll just keep this without numbers. But the Gemini is a dock, can have storage, and can even drive a display. This little thing, if you know what a BNC cable is, the problem with all of our Thunderbolt cables is they fall out. This is called a Klingon, and it helps keep your Thunderbolt or USB 3 cables into your system with a little bit more security. So I become a fan of OWC because I was using their docks. I was using this little Klingon, and somebody pointed out to me, Sam Messman, who's a good friend, he said, you know, Jeff, one of the things that I really like about about OWC, Otherworld Computing, is nearly every single one of their enclosures, you can put in your own storage. You can just buy the enclosure separate. And that became kind of a marching point for me. One of my personal uncomfortabilities were sometimes around our favorite fruit computer manufacturers. Everything's hard soldered now. I want to be able to upgrade stuff, even my storage. So all the OWC storage products, except for one, I think, we can pretty much open up or buy empty. So now that you understand why I became an OWC fan, I kind of think of us as users falling into 3 big groups. And I say 3 big groups because there's, of course, 100 slices smaller. I want to talk about mobile creators for a moment. Now, we're shooting on a mobile device. It might be a very, very light camera, maybe a phone. The iPhone 13 is crazy good in shooting ProRes and its variable focal lengths. You're on the move. You're going to edit still on desktop. And the 2 items here that I think are probably my weapons of choice are the Envoy Pro Mini. And what makes this nice is if you've got an iPad Pro, it's USB-C. You can plug directly into it. This goes at about a gigabyte per second. It can fit in your pocket, as a thumb drive. It can connect old, new. The Envoy Pro Mini is phenomenal. And then this Envoy Electron with this funny K in there. This is a waterproof SSD. Now, you shouldn't be taking your Apple devices or your Windows devices and dunking them in a pool, but God forbid something like this got wet. This is a phenomenal, rugged lifestyle for mobile users. And that's what makes it attractive to me. And they both run about a gigabyte a second. Yeah, that means about 30, 40. Means that you can really move a lot of material pretty quickly on the road with some level of ruggedness. And I want to step up from this. For me, that's the solopreneur, filmmaker, predator, kind of do it all. I have 3 tools I want to talk about. It's really 2. I'm going to hide one. The Envoy Pro is one of the fastest drives out there as an SSD. It saturates Thunderbolt. 2800, 2.8 gigabytes per second. So we're talking 100 gigs in ideal circumstances, of course, in less than a minute. And that's just, that's if you're dealing with offloading, if you're on set and you're dealing with, I can't go home until the stuff is copied twice. I'm now telling people really what you want to do is you want to be copying onto 1 or 2 SSDs and then somewhere else copying to RAIDs and the like. The size of the Envoy Pro, it starts at 1 terabyte. And it goes higher than that. And we can look it all up on their site, but it's something, it's for me, for the professional, this is my tool of choice. With the Thunderbay 4 being my tiny RAID for users. And it's actually a little bit slower. It's spinning disks. So it's just a little bit slower, about half the speed of the Envoy Pro. But these two, and they make a bigger brother than this, but this is your 4-disk RAID. This is your SSD that goes everywhere with you. The bigger version of this, and this can go up to 32 terabytes, is the Thunderblade, and it's just a RAID of these devices. I kind of hide it. I hide it for that reason. And if you're a freelancer, could you imagine you go out to set or you go to a client set and you just can copy everything? You can copy everything and you're doing like 2 terabytes in like less than a half hour, and then you're able to take it back home. Forget proxies, it's just carry and go. My 3rd tier, so just as a refresher here, because I've done so many different things here. My mobile creator, we talked about my solopreneur, and then I want to talk about a group of editors, and I got 2 real toys here for you, 2 real big pieces. My first for you is the Thunderbay 8. And that, I just said the Thunderbay 4, this can be up to 8 drives. It does something else. I don't want to get too much into the bits and bobs of gears, but the top can be replaced with that Thunderblade. The way I work as a colorist, I want some caching on very, very fast drives. So instead of me putting in this box 8 spinning disks, I'll put 7 spinning disks and 1 Thunderblade with very, very fast cache storage. I'll put my projects there. I'll put my caches there. I'll put maybe my renders there. And then I'll put the rest of the storage here in a RAID 6. I'm a RAID 6 fan over RAID 5. I'm not going to explain to you that it's a redundant array of information disks. I'm not going to do that. But the concept here is because I'm kind of mixing and matching, I can go very, very fast and then still fast, but just a little less speed sensitive in that circumstance. And the moment that I'm beginning to talk about network attached storage, we start talking about a Jellyfish. Now, there are a lot of other great groups on the market that make NASs. There's a gentleman who maybe you guys know about, Bob Z with the white hair, who's a fantastic human being, a little caustic in forums, who talks about another product. This is set up beautifully. Generally speaking, these aren't an item like a Jellyfish. You want more than just a box you put. You want storage and you want support. And they've got a very smart indicator. One of the craziest things I've seen, OWC has an ROI calculator. Let's say you're working for a group and you're trying to sit back and get your boss to spend a lot of money to buy a NAS. They'll sit back and they'll ask you a bunch of questions. How many editors? How much storage? And at the very end, they show you how much time you save by having multiple editors on a box like this, rather than having them sling stuff around drives. And in most cases, in a multi-editor environment, you get your return of a box like this in less than a year. And that's something that OWC gets because they're trying to approach it as, hey, we can talk to you straight numbers, but you might want to talk about it in human terms along those lines. I see that we have 2 questions. Do you want to be the voice of one or the other, or 3 questions?
I sure can. Let's go. Let's do this. Oh, it's Gary. Hi, Gary. I'm
Gary.
shooting 2 shows in one night with an hour break in between with 5 cameras and a mix of CFast 2.0 and CF Express cards. What would be the fastest way to transfer the footage between shows?
It's a phenomenal question. Off the top of my head, I have no idea. It's a lot of math there. I'm a great math guy, right? But the first integrity rule of presenting and teaching is you bring your authentic self. Gary, if I've got 5 cameras and price is not an issue, and I know price is an issue, I'm going to have 5 computers. I'm going to have 5 CS fast readers. And I'm going to have 5 Envoy Pros or the Thunderblade, which are super crazy fast. We're talking about saturating Thunderbolt. And where the big issue is, the big limitation is how fast are the CF card readers coming off. Now, you're realistically going to say to me, Jeff, I only have 1 computer or 2 computers. So what I'm going to tell you is to sit back and do the math equation of when you're shooting, how much storage is 5 times, the length of the show, and do the math in advance, and you'll know if you can make it. And the reason I'm suggesting multiple computers and multiple readers is because every time I bring in another reader, I cut the workload in half. So I hope I did a good job on that one. And if I sucked, Gary, you just write in the chat, you suck. But I'm happy to help you figure out the math, because the piece you haven't given me here is some of the data rates and stuff, and we can work out the math. And I would do it for free for you.
Oh,
absolutely, my goal. Well, Wendy, the part about user groups is it's all about giving back to communities, right?
You are right about that. So let's go to Robert Frank. Is there a significant difference between storage with a terabyte 3 and terabyte 4 interface?
Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4.
Oh, sorry.
Practically speaking, it's okay. Practically speaking, no. There are some differences in Thunderbolt 3 and 4 and how much of other information it passes. But for this sort of data rate, no. They're both maxing at 40 megabits per second. They're both getting saturated by tools. Like we're literally going as fast as you can go unless you can hardwire inside of the computer the way Apple does.
Got it. Okay, and Paul was one of our amazing volunteers who helped us at every single meeting. Amazing, Paul, I miss you. What about risk of harder recovery of SSD versus HDD if an issue arises? How to mitigate ahead of time?
So let's do the mitigation first. Back up your work. 3 copies of your work. Card, a spinning disk or an SSD copy, and your 3rd copy that you're working with live. I'd really say your card copy can be your first, and I'd like one to be somewhere else. A cloud is fine. I typically will take a copy of the work, put it on a spinning disk, and send it to my brother, and my brother has in Florida a whole bucket of my hard drives sitting in a closet. 3 copies mean if one of them goes bad, I still have 2 backups that I can be safe with, one that I'm actually using live. So that's A. That's the mitigation. You want to do that because there are 2 types of people. There are people who back up everything that's important of their digital files, and then there are people who have yet to lose every single digital file that's important to them. Yes, Time Machine is an excellent tool, but so we are aware Time Machine will back up a damaged file, and now your backup is damaged. So I, generally speaking, don't want to have to spend money for any level of recovery. Hard drives invariably are actually safer recovery mechanisms than SSDs. About the 2-year mark is where I pull a hard drive off of a spinning disk out of its live rotation, and I start using it as a long-term storage. The better choice would be an LTO, a linear tape open, for longer-term storage on a shelf because it's got some built-in error correction. Why do I say 2 years? because Google's data centers did a study of when drives die, and let's say it's 1% of spinning disks. It's 1%, pretty constant every month, but at the 2-year mark, that starts to creep higher above 1% or 2%. I'm pulling those numbers out of nowhere, but you get the idea. At that 2-year mark, I'll sit back, I write the month of that drive, and about once every 6 months to a year, I plug in the drive, I make sure it's spinning to keep it alive. An SSD will either do one of two things if it has a problem. It will lock itself, or it's catastrophic and you lose everything. That's one of the two. I have yet to have an SSD have a problem, but we're, say, only about 5-6 years into the real SSD lifestyle, and I know it's coming one day. Every brand breaks eventually. There's nothing like entropy in the universe.
Do you recommend tape drives for long-term storage?
I absolutely recommend tape drives for long-term storage for the simple reason that there are, right now, spinning disks are maybe just getting more economical, just by a little. But LTOs, linear tape open, has this beautiful ability. It's got some extra error correction because magnetic particles drift. I'm sorry, I know we wish we could carve it in stone, but even stone erodes over the years. An LTO is the safest way for long-term storage, although I do believe in companies like Backblaze and storing it into cloud-based infrastructures, making it their problem, not yours. But you have to pay every month when you store it online in a cloud, and then really scary, they charge you to get it back down from the cloud. It's called an egress fee.
Got it. Okay. Monica, our friend over in New Mexico, as a standalone home studio, what is your preference?
My preference, aside from 3-2-1, 3 copies, 2 locations, 1 live, Monica, is I probably, as you begin to grow above, in fact, I'll bring up the slide for it. As you begin to grow above the storage of a single unit, and let me get that behind me, I absolutely begin to talk to you about a spinning disk RAID. And the RAID I'd like to see you at would be what's called a RAID 5. Basically, RAIDs aren't a backup, but a RAID 5 means you lose some of the space of the drives to error correction. So if one drive dies, it still keeps your data. For the record, again, one of the things I think is magical about OWC is they'll sell you the box, and you can buy whoever drives you want, but they'll sell you the drives as well. And that's not something everybody will do. And if you can go that next step, I think this idea of a Thunderblade, which again is a RAID, and I go RAID 6 at this point with more than 4 spinning disks, which is extra error correction. I put in the top slot some SSD caches, and they call that a Thunderblade.
I'm brand new to the US and finishing film school remotely back in the UK. I'm getting ready to film my first ever production, micro-budget feature, and realize it's time to invest in storage. Would you recommend the Solopreneur filmmaker pathway for me?
I am a guerrilla filmmaker. I'm a big Robert Rodriguez, spend zero money mindset. My answer to you is, on a microfilm, you spend as least money as possible. Because the moment you open up your wallet, the moment you open it up, money flies out. And it gets easier and seductive if I just had that piece of gear, if I just had that piece of hardware. So my answer to you is, hey, the Envoy, I want to make sure I get the name of it right, the Envoy Electron or the Envoy Pro Mini are excellent, excellent choices. I'd rather see you be more thrifty about the spending. And it's okay that it's a little slower, that good, fast, cheap. It's okay that's a little bit slower for you, because as an indie filmmaker, you do have to worry about feeding yourself at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we only have 2 more minutes. So let me see. A lot of questions about NAS system. We just purchased a NAS system with 10 gigabytes. Any advice?
My 2 things I'd want you to know is, one is you can buy an external piece of hardware. If your older Macs or even your newer Macs don't have 10 gig Ethernet, you can buy a dock, an external piece that gets you 10 gig Ethernet. Super crazy useful, super important. You want that fast pathway. The only other thing I'll tell you about NASs in general is you better still have a backup of it. You better still treat treat that work as it's important, but something could die. Remember, there's no such thing as hardware that doesn't break after time. And Jeannie, they'll call Jean, I'll tell you that the 3-2-1 is I want you to have 3 copies of your media. I want you to keep it in 2 locations, one here and one offsite, and you use one of them live. 3, 2, 1.
I am very impressed. That was a ton of great information. Thank you for answering all those questions. And make sure you connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also ask that you use hashtag LAPPG so we can see what's going on and you can find us. And a big thank you to our partners. We are very grateful for all of their support all year long. At the platinum level, we have AJA Video Systems. At the gold level, we have Adobe, Blackmagic Design, OWC, Zeiss, Frame.io. And at the silver level, we have Isotope, SGO, Reduct, Teradek, and Small HD. So big thank you to all of them. And it really does take a village. So another big thank you to our supporting media and community partners who really do help us get the word out about LAPPG every month. We thank them for all of their support. And be sure to head to our YouTube channel to catch up on past meetings. Last year, almost at this time, I think it was our August or July meeting, we had hybrid production workflows with OWC, and that was a really, really good one. So head to YouTube, check out our 70 plus meeting videos there, hit the bell icon so you will be notified when the new videos arrive. All right, well, a huge, huge thank you to you, Jeff, a huge thank you to OWC, and thank you all for being here with us. We will see you next month, and everybody take care, be safe.